Hi guys, I'm Joe. Thanks very much for joining me at my channel today. I'm here with a replay of a match against Abzan Company. Looking at the opening hands, I've got all three of the Caverns of Souls in my deck, but that's fine because I've got these three Merfolk that I'm going to want to resolve. This Spreading Seas will require me to draw blue source at some point, but I'm going to have time for that. So this is a pretty easy keep on my side. On the opponent's side of things, we see they have two colored lands, as well as Gavany Township for some late game inevitability. Two Noble Hierarchs for ramp and exalted triggers, Collected Company and Court of Calling. Looks like a very nice hand for the opponent. Actually, pretty good hands on both sides of the table. So after we both say that we'll keep, the opponent opens with a Forest into Noble Hierarch. I drew into an AEther Vial for my first draw step. Pretty much my best possible draw there. So with no 2 or 3 drops, the opponent is just going to play out that second Noble Hierarch. Swing for 2 with the first one, take me down to 18, crack their Windswept Heath for a tapped Temple Garden. And pass the turn. My AEther Vial is going to go up to 1 here. I'll play the second Cavern of Souls naming Merfolk. I drew into a second AEther Vial, but I'm going to go ahead and play this Silvergill Adept since I'm still looking for that first blue source. And I could have potentially drawn into a Cursecatcher there to make use of my AEther Vial on 1. So the opponent's going to have access to 5 mana here on turn 3. Very powerful mana ramping with those 2 Noble Hierarchs. He's going to go ahead and swing with one of the Noble Hierarchs again, taking me down to 16. Now on the opponent's end step, it would have been interesting, a good opportunity to bluff activate AEther Vial. Would have pretty much forced him to cast Collected Company on his own end step. The only thing that would do pretty much is just give me information about which creatures I'm going to be facing down before my actual turn. But I didn't think about that line during the game, so I just went to my turn, ticked AEther Vial up to 2, and happened to draw into a Cursecatcher. Now I'm still not going to look to play this AEther Vial here. I do have 3 lands to cast my Merfolk, and I have this AEther Vial to keep pumping out 2 drops. So I'm going to lead this turn with Cursecatcher and hope the opponent just makes a misstep and lets it resolve. But they're going to respond with Collected Company. That's going to resolve. They'll look at the top 6, and they happen to find 2 out of the 3 necessary combo pieces. All I need at this point is a Kitchen Finks or Murderous Redcap, and we can see they have the Court of Calling in hand. So I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward a little bit. I'm going to dump 2 Island Walk Lords. With the pressure of these combo pieces, I just want to push as much damage as possible. No tricks at this point. The opponent's going to take 4 and go down to 15, but then on their turn, they have another land to play. They have to tap 6 of their permanents to resolve Court of Calling, for Kitchen Finks, going up to Infinite Life and Infinite Scries for Reejerey to set up their Murderous Redcap finish. But they could also just tap 7 right now, go ahead and get the Murderous Redcap right away. They don't really need Infinite Life. I still can't counter it since they'll have a Noble Hierarch available to pay for the Cursecatcher. But as it was, the opponent played a little bit conservatively. They only tapped 6 things. They mistakenly put out Collected Company, which got my hopes up because I thought maybe they misread this card and they thought, oh, well, I have the Court of Calling, when actually it's only a Collected Company. But in fact, of course, they have both of them in their hand. So after I point out to him that he's not trying to play Collected Company, he shows me the Court of Calling. And before I scoop, I just make him show me the Kitchen Finks. Don't scoop before the opponent actually shows their combo pieces, guys. It's very rare that they're not going to have what they need, but it only takes another 5 or 10 seconds, and could be the difference between losing and winning a game. So always play it out. I never scoop early. Looking at the opening hands for the second game, mine looks pretty great. I've got these 2 blue sources, 2 Silvergills, and 2 Spreading Seas. That's a lot of card draw. And some of my sideboard tech in this Relic of Progenitus. For those of you who don't know, Relic of Progenitus is good against Abzan Company because it interrupts their combo. If they use their sacrifice outlet like Reejerey to sacrifice a Kitchen Finks or a Murderous Redcap, that creature will be in the graveyard with their Persist trigger on the stack. Now before that Persist trigger resolves, I can pay 1 mana, exile Relic of Progenitus, exile that creature with the Persist trigger on the stack, and then all the graveyards will just get moved to exile, and their combo will effectively be interrupted. So this is an easy keep for me. On the opponent's side, however, they only have 1 white mana, so that's in snap mulligan for them. 0 mana, 0 lands in the 6, so they're going to go down to 5. And 3 lands, Birds of Paradise, Reejerey is pretty anemic, and we see that they're going to scry a Plains to the bottom. They're going to look to draw a little bit better than that Plains. I'll lead with Oboro into Relic of Progenitus. Pass the turn to the opponent. Oh, they draw a forest, so pretty poor draw there. For my turn, looks like I drew into a Wanderwine Hub. I'm going to put the first Wanderwine Hub into play, and then it is a strategy of mine, a belief that if an opponent has mulliganed pretty hard to, say, 5 or lower, if you can play Spreading Seas on the play, on turn 2, you should pretty much always take that opportunity, because it's going to be much more likely that the opponent is not going to be able to hit effective land drops. So I'm following that strategy in this game, but as you can see, the one thing the opponent does have a lot of access to here is lands and mana. So probably chose incorrectly there, but ultimately not the biggest of deals. I drew into a Dispel, which is going to be great with this third blue source. The opponent taps their Birds of Paradise for black mana to play Viscera Seer, and then follows up with the Verdant Catacombs. For my turn, I draw another Spreading Seas. These guys are not going to be that great right now, since you can't really target fetch lands effectively. I'm going to put the Wanderwine Hub out here, reveal Silvergill, cast Silvergill, reveal another Silvergill, and draw into an Island Walk Lord. I'm going to leave this mana up here just in case I need this Dispel. And Relic of Progenitus is also online here with my 1 mana up. After he cracks the Verdant Catacombs, I'm going to go ahead and point at him with my Relic of Progenitus just to make him keep his graveyard nice and empty. The opponent is down to 19, he gets a tapped Temple Garden and draws yet another land. Alright, so looks like he tapped the island to crack the Horizon Canopy and drew into a Noble Hierarch. So after playing the Hierarch, it looks like he's attacking for 1 with the birds. A risky proposition against Merfolk since we play Harbinger of the Tides, but I guess the opponent feels on the ropes here on their mulligan, and they're getting pretty aggressive. Alright, so I'm going to lose 1 life. Going down to 19, looks like the opponent kind of stalled out here. Okay, so we're on to my turn. I chose not to pop the Relic there, even though I had the mana up, but during my upkeep, I'm going to tap it, just again to keep their graveyard empty. And I drew into a 4th land. Pretty nice. So, you know, I guess the consideration here is whether to leave mana up for Relic and Dispel, but with the opponent on their mulligan and not looking like they have access to a ton of resources, they're still only on 1 combo piece. It might be a green light to go ahead and just use up all of my mana on my main phase. I'm going to get in with Silvergill Adept and see if they want to block with that Viscera Seer. Looks like they don't, so I'll go to my second main, put the Mutavault out, deploy my second Silvergill Adept, and it looks like I drew into another island. And at this point, I chose to pass the turn. I don't want the opponent to resolve any collected companies now that they are going to have 4 mana on their turn. So my opponent missed my reveal. I'm going to show him the Master again. Okay, so it looks like the opponent drew another land. On a mulligan to 5, this is pretty poor draws on their side of things. They got in for 1 again with the Birds of Paradise. I chose again not to cycle the Relic yet. I'm just playing very conservatively this game. But now with 5 mana, I can go ahead and play more spells while still leaving up mana. Or just start attacking with Mutavault. That's another reasonable option. So 3, 3, and 3. The opponent does have a Path to Exile, and with them getting so low on cards and with blue mana up here, I have the option of casting Dispel, but again, choosing to play very conservatively. The opponent's still going to take 6 damage. I'm still going to get a land off of their Path to Exile. So just figuring I don't need to use my Dispel there, and I can also just keep mana up to crack Relic of Progenitus. The opponent cracked a fetch land and got a tapped Overgrown Tomb on their end step. They draw into Malira, which is a little bit scary because now they just need to top deck a Kitchen Finks. So that guy's going to resolve. The opponent plays a tapped Temple Garden, and I'm going to keep chipping away with the Relic of Progenitus. Actually, now might have been a good time to cycle it, but again, playing very conservatively, especially with the 2 combo pieces on the table. A Relic is very, very good insurance against the Kitchen Finks Murderous Redcap. combo. So I drew into another Island Walk Lord. That's pretty fantastic since I have the Spreading Seas already on the opponent's land. Go ahead and play out my 7th land. Tap for Master of the Pearl Trident, and I think the opponent is not far from scooping at this point. I'm going to activate both Mutavaults, and with Island Walk online, I'm going to be swinging for 12 here. So, okay, he thought that he had some blocks, but I have Island Walk, and with a Verdant Catacomb sitting in his hand, doesn't have anything to do about that. So that was game 2. Mulligan to 5, pretty terrible draws for the opponent. Let's go ahead and see how game 3 went. On my side of things, I've got 3 lands, 2 Merfolk, another Relic, and Dismember as removal. Looking pretty good. The opponent is on 0 lands, so they're going to have to go down to 6. 1 land, this is a scary keep, so they go down to 5 again, unfortunately. But it's a pretty solid 5. I'd say they get to scry. And let me see what they did with that scry. Oh, well, we don't get to see the card yet. We'll see it when he draws it next turn. But he opens with Temple Garden into Noble Hierarch. So a pretty good opening for Mulligan to 5. I draw into a Mutavault, and we'll choose to open with Island into Dismember, actually, getting rid of that Noble Hierarch. I think, did the opponent just tell me he had no lands? No lands, bad luck, mull to 5. So he played his Noble Hierarch, and he could have been bluffing, but I just assumed he wasn't. So rather than play out the Relic right now, which wasn't likely to do a ton in the first few turns against a Mulligan to 5, I used the Dismember to get rid of that source of mana that the opponent played. Well, they drew into another Birds of Paradise there. We can see why he chose to keep that on the top of his deck. I'll play a Silvergill Adept, revealing Merrow Reejerey, and pass the turn after drawing another Silvergill Adept. So 2 mana for Spellskite. It's going to pass the turn back to me. I'll play another Silvergill Adept, revealing Merrow Reejerey, draw an island, play that island, and play an Aether Vial. So definitely ahead on development. The opponent is really short on mana, but they drew into an Anafenza Kintree Spirit. This card serves, again, for those of you who are a little bit unfamiliar with the deck, it acts similar to Malira. Now, Malira Sylvok Outcast says that creatures can't get -1 counters on them. So when Kitchen Finks comes into the battlefield, comes back to the battlefield with Persist, he doesn't come back with a -1 counter. He just comes back whole, comes back as a 3/2, and can be sacrificed as many times as you want. Now, Anafenza works a little bit differently. She uses the bolster mechanic, which says that whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, bolster 1, which means choose a creature with the least toughness among creatures you control and put a +1/+1 counter on it. When Kitchen Finks comes back from the graveyard, it's going to have 1 toughness. So it's always going to be either the lowest toughness or tied for the lowest toughness. So it gets to be made whole again from a 2/1 back up to a 3/2, and it can get sacrificed over and over again. So again, Anafenza working similarly to Malira, for those of you who are unfamiliar with how the combo works. Opponent's still stuck on 2 mana. I've got plenty of lands. Aether Vial will go up to 1, and I drew a Cursecatcher just now. So it looks like I can play all my spells right now. It's going to be Reejerey and Swing. With the opponent only on this sort of 1 combo piece, I had a feeling they're not going to trade. So they take 3 from 1 Silvergill and block with the Spellskite for the other. I'm going to follow up with Relic of Progenitus, empty out that graveyard right now, and pass, leaving the Aether Vial up, being able to respond with Cursecatcher rather than putting him onto the battlefield on my own turn. The opponent found a land, but with nothing to do with 3 mana and not needing black, they bring it into play tapped. Opponent thinks about attacking. That would have been a little bit weird, but they just pass in the end. I'm going to actually keep this Cursecatcher in hand to take advantage of tap triggers with Merrow Reejerey. Now, I've got more than enough lands to cast Cursecatcher and any other creature that I draw this turn. So it's going to be much more valuable to tap down a blocker. Say that I tap Spellskite, then the opponent is put to the question of whether they want to trade or potentially chump with Anafenza or the birds. Spellskite is a great blocker, but I could potentially just take him out of the equation here. I drew into another Merfolk, actually a great one that works particularly well with Merrow Reejerey. So I'll go ahead and put the Cavern of Souls out and name Merfolk. I'll start with the Harbinger of the Tides, tap the Anafenza. Opponent chooses not to redirect it to Spellskite, so I'm going to go ahead and bounce the Anafenza. Activate the Mutavault and attack. The opponent is going to exile my Merrow Reejerey. I would have had mana to pay if I had brought the Cursecatcher out, because they have the Birds of Paradise up. They're going to block my Mutavault and then take 4 from my 2 Silvergill Adepts. I'll follow up in my second main. Well, I had to get the island from the Path to Exile. And I'll follow up with Cursecatcher. Now, if I think about why I didn't tap that Spellskite with a Reejerey trigger going into combat with this Cursecatcher beforehand, I can't quite recall. It might have been something about not overextending, but I don't know. I think I might have just been hasty. You guys let me know what you think about that play. I'm going to keep going here. The opponent's going to use their other Path to Exile here on my Harbinger. Actually, no, I guess on Cursecatcher. Wait, what's going on here? Okay, it looks like he's trying to exile the Harbinger, and I'm just going to try to counter that with my Cursecatcher. Wait, I don't know what's going on here. It's so confusing. Let's back up a tiny bit. All right. So I tapped Relic of Progenitus, and in response, the opponent cast Path to Exile, and he pointed to my Harbinger of the Tides. So I guess the Harbinger got exiled. Not a big deal. I guess I chose to keep the Cursecatcher rather than sacrifice it. And the opponent drew a Collected Company, which is pretty solid. With 4 lands, though, they can't really go for it. Though it looks like they chose to. Maybe they thought they were like just way far behind here, but they went for it, and I'm just going to counter it with Cursecatcher. I think the opponent apologized here and just left. A little bit of a strange ending to an otherwise solid match. The opponent was clawing his way back into it there. He was on 2 mulligans to 5 this match, so not really that fairly balanced. But yeah, that was the match. Please, share any comments you have, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks as always for watching. Bye-bye.